Senator Tester. Senator Rounds from South Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, first of all, let me congratulate you again on being selected to serve a second term as the chair of the Federal Reserve, and I do look forward to supporting your nomination. I want to follow up a little bit with regard to the discussion on inflation. And consumer price index rose 6.8% in November. There appears to be a consistency along that line. Part of that, you have the opportunity to impact with regard to the demand side. Can you talk to us about your discussions, or at least your analysis, of how much of the inflationary trends we're seeing you have the ability to impact with your monetary policy?
So we don't have much ability to affect the supply side. And if you look at where the really big contributors are to the overshoot from inflation, it's in the goods sector still largely, and that's cars, that's new, used, and rental cars. It's appliances and
what about food?
Goods. Food too.
Hamburger at over $5 a pound.
Yeah, no, and that's not something we can't. I'd say that there are supply side issues there too, as you and I have discussed, but those are really outside the range of our.
Be fair to say
tools.
Petroleum products as well.
Yes.
Gas, price of gas at over $5
a
gallon. Those are items that are supply side. They are not the demand side, and yet
that's right.
You have a responsibility to try to, or at least your goal is to remain inflation at about 2% or so.
Right.
But the supply side of this is a significant part of the entire inflationary demand. Fair to say that your focus is on the demand side, not the supply side, correct?
That is right. That's correct.
So what percent of that inflationary trend, what percent of that are you trying to impact with the demand side monetary policy that you have the ability to impact?
It'd be hard to break it down in that way. I would say it this way, though. Right now, our policy is very highly accommodative, so we're stimulating. We're not restraining demand at all at this point. We're encouraging it. We're trying to get to a place where we're more neutral and then perhaps tight, if that's appropriate.
But it's not political in nature. It is economic in nature to say that the inflationary trends that we are seeing are partially from the ability of consumers with cash in their pockets to be able to pay a higher price. But second of all, it's because of the limitations and the bottlenecks that we find within the supply side of our economy, correct?
Yes.
So let's just take food as an example. I come from South Dakota where cows outnumber people, and yet we have producers there that on a regular basis talk about the fact that they don't see an increase in what they're receiving for livestock, and yet our consumers across the entire country are seeing huge increases in the price of meat. And in between them sit packers, four packers who control over 80% of the market, showing record high profits while consumers pay huge inflated prices. That's something which has to be dealt with policy and not necessarily something that the Fed can impact, correct?
That's really a competition policy question, yes.
Yeah. So do we have the same type of challenges with regard to other items that people consume on a daily basis? And by that I mean petroleum products are something that I truly believe that the price rise in petroleum in 06, 07 really impacted the ability of people to actually pay their mortgages or pay their rent, or for that matter, they were going to put food on the table before they were going to pay a mortgage. Do we have a similar type of situation developing here with regard to individuals that are trying to get to work, paying a higher price for their gasoline, and now they're seeing the possibilities of other things going by the wayside?
That is right. I mean, gas prices are high, and those gas prices and food prices and heating oil prices, are the kind of things that affect people who are living paycheck to paycheck on a fixed income.
And not necessarily something that you can do at the Fed, but nonetheless, it does impact inflation, and it's something that would probably have to be addressed with the regulatory environment that we have within this country today.
We can have marginal effects on demand, but we really, when it comes down to energy and food, those are largely importantly influenced by supply side issues.
Thank you. And I would just add this. I know that with regard to regulations, the Fed has been considering whether or not to make permanent adjustments on a separate item to the supplementary leverage ratio, or SLR, in order to account for a significant influx of cash that consumers have got. They're trying to put them into banks, and yet banks have to basically have capital to be able to accept those deposits. I would just hope, and I would consider that you continue to look at considerations with regard to the adjustments on the SLR, so that we actually have the ability to accept those deposits in the future, sir.
We will return to that. We want risk-based capital to be binding, not the leverage ratio. We do want to make adjustments, but we want them to be done in ways that don't reduce the overall bindingness of the capital requirements on the largest firms. That's an important principle. But within that, we do think there's some things we may be able to do on the SLR that honor that first principle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Warner from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chair Powell, let me join my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in thanking you again for your service. I want to pick up a little bit where my friend Senator Tester left off when he started talking about